Today we're going to be talking about the work of the Jane Goodall Institute and how we use strategic partnerships and youth-led initiatives to amplify the impact of our projects. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the background of the Jane Goodall Institute, what we do, and then take you through 3 different examples of how we manage projects. I'd love to hear any questions that you have, and make it as interactive as we can. So please pop questions into the Q&A tab, and then Stuart or I will pick those up. So on to the next one, please. I wanted to start by asking you, how many of you have heard of Jane Goodall? Can you pop a thumbs up emoji into the chat if you've heard of Jane Goodall before, or the Jane Goodall Institute? Ah, great. We have a few people. Brilliant. Thank you. So Jane, for those of you who don't know, she's British. She was born in England. She is a doctor. She's a dame. She's the founder of the Jane Goodall Institute, and she's also UN Messenger of Peace. She was awarded that in 1991 for our global youth program, Roots and Shoots, which I'll talk to you about later on. She's best known for her studies of wild chimpanzees. So when she was 26, over 60 years ago, she traveled to Tanzania to study wild chimpanzees. She was one of 3 scientists chosen by Louis Leakey, who was an anthropologist. So Jane, Diane Fossey, and Birute Galdikas were chosen by Louis Leakey to study. Jane went to study chimps, Diane to study gorillas, and Birute to study orangutans, and they are sometimes known as the primates. So Louis Leakey chose women to conduct these observational studies because he thought women were just able to observe more objectively with more empathy. So he chose these women for those reasons. They weren't scientists, but they were by the time they finished, and they all had a scientific approach to their observations. So Jane's observations actually changed the way that the world defined humans. So before Jane's studies, humans were described as man the tool maker, because it was believed that that's what set us apart from the rest of the animal kingdom. Whereas Jane witnessed chimpanzees using tools within her first few months of being there. So not only did chimps put sticks into holes to fish out termites and then eat them, they also adapt the sticks. So they choose the best tool, they pull bits off of it to make it more effective. So they actually make tools. And since then, we know much more about chimpanzees and their behavior. They display different cultures, and they're our closest living relatives. So really, what Louis Leakey believed was that by understanding more about them, we also understand more about ourselves. So that study is still ongoing, and that's part of what the Jane Goodall Institute does today. So we carry on those studies in Tanzania, but we also have spread to, we have 30 offices around the world and a presence in over 65 countries. So we really exist to carry out Jane's message and continue her work. So next slide, please. So Jane has quotes for most things that can be really useful. So her main message is that every individual matters, everyone has a role to play, and everyone makes a difference. And whatever you decide to do every day has an impact. So you have to decide what impact you want that to be. Next slide, please. So the Jane Goodall Institute. So we actually exist today to tackle apathy around climate change and really inspire hope through action. So that's not just hope with a small h, that someone or something will come along and fix everything for us, but that it's really down to us with small everyday actions that build up to big change. It's really important that everyone knows and feels that they can make a difference and that they have a part to play, because by doing small things every day, it also builds up that hope that things can change. It makes you feel good about what you're doing, rather than kind of succumbing to the fear of some of these big problems that we're trying to tackle. So that's really what we're here to do. The change that's required, I think, is for people to see that everything is interconnected. So not losing our connection with the natural world, but really embracing that. So this is what Jane really observed when she went to the forest in Tanzania, is that every single thing in that forest has its role. And she describes it as the tapestry of life. And if you pull on one thread of the tapestry, so if one thing in the forest or if one thing in the ecosystem fails, then you risk kind of destroying the big picture. So that's really her view of this tapestry of life, that we're all connected. And the main message really is that we believe the solutions are out there. The studies have been done. NGOs know what needs to be done. What's needed now is smart, joined up, collaborative working. And as always, the message from NGOs and charities will be that we need money to do it. So yes, next slide, please. So we do a lot of work, more than people realize a lot of the time, but I've summarized it into three main headings. So we are very focused on our closest cousins, the chimpanzees. They are endangered. There were 1 million of them in 1900, and today there are around 300,000. So we're working really hard to protect their habitats and try and tackle the biggest threats to them, which include poaching, the illegal wildlife trade. We're also in Africa coming under threats from mining companies and development. So yeah, there's lots of big issues that we have to work on to try and protect chimpanzees. We also very much focus on community-centered conservation, which I'll talk to you about in a bit more detail as well. So it's another of Jane's beliefs that, for change and conservation to be really sustainable, it has to be led by the people who are most impacted. So everything we do is led by the communities that we work with. We simply provide the kind of frameworks and resources and support for them to lead their own actions and their own projects. And finally, our youth-led action. So this is one of Jane's pillars for hope. She has 5 pillars for hope. One is human intellect. So we have the tool to figure out the solutions that we need. Number 2 is the resilience of nature. So she has seen areas that have been completely deforested come back to life with, really working hard together. And, we saw it in lockdown as well. If you leave a place, nature will take over. So yeah, she sees the resilience of nature as a pillar for hope. Her third is the power of young people. So they see things clearly. They see what solutions are required. So by empowering them and allowing them to lead their own projects, then that can have a huge impact. Number 4 is the indomitable human spirit. So Jane has met some people who, have endured through the most difficult circumstances, and they always give her hope that, the human spirit can really surprise you and really get us through tough times. And she's added one recently. She's added a 5th pillar, which is social media. And I guess this is Jane kind of thinking about when our head and our heart come together and you use the tools that we've created for good, then we have the opportunity to change things in what she perceives as the small window of time that we have to do that. Next slide, please. So just some stats really on what the Jane Goodall Institute achieves. So we do protect large pieces of habitat in Africa and other areas. We have over 5,000 chimpanzees and gorillas living in the habitats that we protect. We directly support 130 communities. We also have 2 chimpanzee sanctuaries, one in the Congo and one in South Africa, and we take in rescued chimps, all with, you know, terrible backstories, but they're now in a place where we try and replicate their natural environment as much as possible. Particularly in the Congo, they live on islands, and people go and deliver them kind of fruits and vegetables each day, but they essentially live as they would in the wild. So they're very happy. And the stats at the bottom are for our youth program. So each year, almost 1.5 million young people around the world are doing their own roots and shoots projects and making a difference in their local communities. Next slide, please. So let's look at these 3 examples that I've chosen for today. So the first one, which I thought you would be interested in, is Accenture in the Netherlands have recently been helping us with our business case for carbon offsetting. So part of my role as global fundraising lead is I help the JGI offices with their local fundraising. I help the projects that we do communicate what they're doing to the offices and to funders so that they can get the resources they need. And I also try and look at new income streams and innovation and what can we be doing to get more money into the network and make sure that we can do all the work that's needed. And Accenture in the Netherlands, their CSR program was focused on youth, and then they recently moved to environmental and sustainability focus. So we were straight in there with our proposal for help. And we had this, we had an idea that we could use carbon offsetting as a way of generating additional income and supplementing the income that we get through philanthropy in a different way. But it's a really complicated subject, and we have limited resources to kind of spend on analysing and learning about it and seeing how it could work for us. So Accenture donated hours to us via their CSR program. So we got access to some great consultants. And in phase 1, they kind of helped us look at the landscape, really understand what is carbon offsetting, what are the risks, what's the opportunity for us, and begin to develop a business case for that. And they really helped us so we had a limited time with them, 3 months, and they really met with us every week, taking us through, really structured project management process, great templates, great documents, spending time interviewing people from around the network, talking to players within the carbon offsetting market, lots of things that we really wouldn't have the time to do on our own. So it's been so useful. And they really enjoyed it as well. I've put at the bottom, it's a win-win, because while Accenture are doing this work for us, they're actually becoming experts in carbon offsetting as well, which is something that then they can offer to other clients. So yeah, we're very clear that this is a win-win partnership. They've come back. You can see we're now in phase 3. So phase 2, they came back for another 3 months with a few more consultants at our disposal to help take the business case development to the next phase, to help us plan some pilot activities so we could actually take it from theory into practice. And they developed a really detailed playbook for the JGI offices to use so that the offices could all see the value that was coming from this partnership and have some really tangible kind of set of instructions that they can apply in their daily lives. The complication for Accenture working with us is that we are quite a complicated organization and sometimes have a bit of lack of clarity around decision-making structures. We're quite a flat structure, which is great, but sometimes it means that reaching final decisions can take longer. So they've kind of helped us think through some of those issues and given us guidance on how we might need to be set up moving forwards. So the next slide just shows you a snapshot of some pages from the playbook that they developed for us. As you can see, it's really complicated stuff, but they've managed to show it in a really visual way, which really helps all of our colleagues. And this isn't something that anyone within JGI could have produced to such a high standard, given that we're not experts in this. So it's been so helpful and a really good example of how kind of project management expertise can really benefit an NGO. Next slide, I just picked out one of the pages of the playbook for you to see. So this is something that I found really helpful that Accenture did for us, which was, so we sometimes have a bit of tension between global and the offices and how we work together, and by showing the structure that Accenture laid out really helps us demonstrate this is the role that the global team could be playing, and this is how it can work when we all work together. So they've really helped us visualize and tell a story to the network. Any questions on anything I've said so far?
So Lynn, there is a question.
Carbon offsetting. Yep.
There's a question in the Q&A from Imran Kurshid. Could you please share if any of the youth programs include leadership skills training to gain awareness and come up with action plans for sustainability? Great.
Shall we come to that when we get to the section on Roots and Shoots and the youth program? Yeah, there'll probably be more questions specifically around Roots and Shoots.
Okay.
After that.
Back on that one.
Yeah.
And there's another question here. I don't know if you can see that one, Lynn. Are there aspects of social or economic equity that the communities are facing due to adversity in the environments?
Yes, and I'll come on to that in the next section as well. So yes, to respond, there are most of our conservation work is centered in Africa because that's where the chimpanzee range countries are. So we definitely see, so when Jane flew over Gombe, the national park where she did her studies into chimpanzees, years later, she saw that Gombe was still a pocket of trees, but this huge forest that she'd been living in had gone. And her first thought was, what must the communities there be going through to make them cut down their own forest? So she really understands that by understanding the needs and the struggles that people are going through usually gets you to the answers and the solutions. So since then, we're really embedded with the local communities to try and help figure out what can alternative livelihoods be, how can we support them, how can we use science and tools to help them, figure out what's needed. So yeah, definitely. And now we're helping communities prepare for climate change and look at climate change mitigation. Yeah, there's so many things, so many challenges going on that, yeah, we try and help with. Hopefully that will be covered in the next section somewhat if we go to the next slide. Yeah, so this I wanted to talk to you about an approach that we have. So it's more of an ethos that we apply to our projects, and it's called Takare. And it actually came from, it's an acronym. So it came from a project that we did near Lake Tanganyika, which is the lake that Gombe National Park sits on. So it was the Lake Tanganyika Catchment Reforestation and Education Program. Not as catchy. Now it's Takare, and it kind of also means it's come to mean kind of take care. So we take care to put local communities in charge of what's happening. And we put empathy at the heart, we put understanding at the heart. You know, Jane always believes she'll talk to anyone and try and understand where they're coming from and see if they can be engaged with stories, you know, rather than kind of not, you know, it could be easy for us to say, well, we're not going to work with oil companies because they're doing so much damage, but that's never an approach that Jane would take. So it's always kind of talking, understanding, listening. And there's a book that Esri have produced. So Esri is a kind of geospatial mapping tool that we use. And they've produced this book which talks about how we've planned projects and how we've approached projects at JGI, and it's laid out in a way that anybody can take that methodology and apply it to their projects. So it might be quite useful or interesting to this audience. But yeah, it's basically, as I said, it's putting people at the heart, putting communities in charge, and just being there as a kind of support or to help amplify what they're doing. One of the key stakeholders where we work is always the government and other kind of governmental organizations, and having Jane's reputation and JGI's reputation can also be really helpful to communities in making them stronger and helping them to know that they're connected with a network and not just kind of fighting some of these things on their own. Next slide, please. Yeah, so just a bit more about the Takare approach. So we use conservation science. So we continue Jane's kind of background in science, and we help local communities to visualize and map their areas to really see what's going on and help to figure out what the best solutions can be. We're really focused on trying to replant corridors. So where forests have become disconnected, try and reconnect them to make sure that chimpanzee populations can travel and be healthy. Yeah, so that's one of our big focuses. But yeah, we produce a lot of maps like this to help decision making. We recently managed to show the Ugandan government that deforestation was happening at a rate that was not what they'd agreed to. And using our satellite tools, we were able to give them the kind of evidence that they needed to take action. So kind of being an international NGO in that way really helps with the local action. Any questions on Takare? Or I'm probably not the best person to answer in detail, but it just gives you a flavor of how we kind of try and apply the same ethos across all of our work. Okay, great. So moving on to the youth. So here's the quote from Jane about, you know, when our clever brain and human heart work together, we can achieve our full potential. So she always, stories are really important to Jane, trying to engage people in a story rather than with stats or facts. So that's really big for her. Next one, please. So Roots and Shoots. So this is our, as I said, 1.5 million young people all around the world. The history of Roots and Shoots is that Jane was sitting at her house in Tanzania, and some young people came to her and said, we're having all these problems in our local community and we thought you'd be able to help. And she put the question back to them, well, is there anything that you could do about these issues? And from there, they kept in touch with her around what they were doing. And she was so inspired by that. When she was traveling the world, giving her talks, she'd talk about these young people, and then more young people would come forward wanting to do the same and do projects in their local communities. So again, it's really led by young people, we encourage them to look at what's going on around them, think about what they might be able to do to tackle some of the issues. And we always encourage them to focus on projects that look at animals, people, and the environment. So, and that's APE, if you notice the acronym. So that can be separate projects or projects that combine all of them. But again, a real focus on that interconnectedness of what we're trying to achieve. So our young people are given a kind of 4-step approach. Get engaged, map it, take action, and celebrate. And we try and give them support along the way, but really, you know, making sure that they're the ones leading it. They just have support from us. Next slide, please. And here's some examples of the things that people are doing. So they're tree planted, so they're growing seedlings, often at schools or in community groups. So planting the seedlings, growing them, then taking them out and planting trees, monitoring the trees. We help with kind of thinking about and planning the kind of species that might work best and different growth rates, and helping share best practice. But really, yeah, the young people own the tree planting and looking after the trees. They do rewilding, they make bug hotels. There's, you know, you name it, the project is happening. And right now, one of our Roots and Shoots groups is taking part in the hackathon that's happening alongside this event. They're planning a project and then they'll be presenting back to the group at the end of the day. So I'm really excited to see what they come up with there. And I also noticed that the session running alongside this one is about the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and lots of our projects, lots of our young people do link their projects with the UN SDGs as well. So yeah, there's so much going on in countries like Canada and Australia. They're working a lot with Indigenous groups. There's also a lot of kind of pen pal activity happening where Roots and Shoots groups in one country will be in touch with a Roots and Shoots group in another country to kind of inspire each other. And that's really important. For my bottom point, we're building a tapestry of hope. So this will be, again, using the technology we have with maps. We're trying to combine maps and stories. So we're making this interactive map where you can zoom in and see what's happening with the Roots and Shoots groups in a particular area of the world. And we're hoping to showcase that at COP in a few weeks' time. So that would be a real visual representation of what the young people are doing all over the world. So yeah, I'm really excited about that. Next slide, please. I think this is a bit of homework. So I've just asked you, the project management community, you've seen kind of the very simple 4-step model that we give to our young people to plan a project. So we're asking, what advice would you give to young people when they're planning a Roots and Shoots project in their local community? Is there something that you would urge them to think about before they start? And there's a Menti there. If you use the QR code, hopefully you can get into the Menti slide, add your response, and then it should create a word cloud, which would be really nice. I'd like that to then feed that back to the Roots and Shoots young people and let them know that this is the advice from the project management community. So we'll give you a couple of minutes for that. And also, yeah, after this session, any advice for how we can be a bit more explicit about project management within our work, especially with young people, would be really great. Imran asked a question about whether the young people get offered leadership skills training. And I think, yes, probably in some areas, but that's maybe something that we could make as more of a feature. We're definitely focusing on, green skills and making sure that our young people have tangible skills that they're developing through the program that can take them into university and, if you know, into the workplace as well. So any ideas you have, feel free to get in touch with me afterwards as well. Okay, so we've got the beginning of a word cloud. That's looking great. Thank you. Ooh, EduScorm. I don't know what that is. I assume that's where you kind of get people together, and is that like a brainstorm kind of exercise? Empathy, yes. Very important to bring that out explicitly. Stuart, do you know what any of these, do you know what effectuation approach means?
I must confess some of the words are new to me as well. So I guess what would be helpful if people who've suggested that could put their explanation of that into the chat so that we can pass that, so that then can pass that on also to her teams.
I'll flash up my email address at the end as well, so people can always get in touch with me. But yeah, our young people are so keen to learn that I'm sure they'll absorb anything that we have to give them. Great. That's looking good. Organized, yeah, I think that's, maybe we can help them a bit more with that, give them some tools and tips. And we had an award ceremony for the 30th anniversary of Roots and Shoots, which was last year, I think, or the year before. Yeah, it's 30 years old, the program. So we're hoping to make that an annual thing. So there could even be, you know, awards for project management, or maybe one of the prizes is to get some more training or skills development. But yeah, I think there's ways that we can recognize these skills more and nurture them. Future proofing, that's a good one. I wonder if that's something that people think about when they're planning their project. I guess that's where the awards can come in, because one of the prizes was kind of investment so that you can scale up your project. So that would be good for people to think about when they're planning it. We do have that kind of informally at the moment. So if there's a great Roots and Shoots project that happens in one country, so we have a rewilding project in Australia that's going really well, that they're then sharing with other countries, and they're starting to do it. We have a seed bomb making program from Turkey, where older Roots and Shoots members hold seed bomb making workshops with younger Roots and Shoots groups, and then they all go out and disperse the seed bombs together to create wildflower areas. So yeah, there's some really nice stuff happening. Great, thank you. That looks brilliant. Anything to add there, Stuart, or should we move on?
Yeah, I suppose if people got any further points they want to add, it all feeds into what you could take away and share with the Roots and Shoots community, isn't it? So
yeah,
so people, please feel free to add anything further points into that.
And I've seen there's a question from Imran around how much collaboration would you say has taken place recently between such projects and organisations with government-led projects in the UK. So we do, each of our offices is an independent organisation in their own country. So each office is kind of really different. So they range from JGI Italy, for example, is one volunteer, and she does amazing stuff, but it's just one person with volunteers. Whereas our office in the US is big, 50 plus employees, about $28 million a year in revenue. So they really do range. But but we do, so different offices will have more ability and resource to work with governments and government funding. But we do receive funding from USAID, which is a US government fund. We are applying for DEFRA funding in the UK, and Darwin funding, which supports kind of biodiversity initiatives in Africa. So yeah, we're applying and we're linking as and when, but I think, yeah, it depends on the resources available and whether our work fits within a government-led kind of criteria, but where it does, we are trying. What we need to get better at, to be honest, is accessing EU funding. So we need to come together as a network and figure out how we can access that more. But yeah, some offices are stronger than others in working with governments. Where we have a presence in Africa, those teams are usually really well connected with the British Embassy in their country and all the different governmental departments. So they're on the ground, they're really well connected. And then, yeah, and that feeds into how closely we work together. But yes, we do. Imran, did you have a government-led project in the UK specifically in mind that you were thinking of with that question? Give Imran some
maybe
time.
Imran could add that to the chat. And maybe while that's happening, Ruth, could we perhaps bring back the rest of Lynn's presentation to follow on from the Mentimeter? Brilliant, thank you.
I don't know if you've seen, Lynn, but there are a couple of links that have been provided to give you some more information on those two terms. So the Edu Scrum and the effectuation. Anders has provided some further information on those for you that may be useful.
Great, really, really helpful. Thank you. And then Imran saying government's foreign policy in general, found that sustainability has different definitions in different countries, even within Europe. Yes, absolutely. Part of, so I'm on the global team, and yeah, understanding different definitions and how different countries approach things kind of, yeah, legally, culturally, it's all really interesting. And part of that rich tapestry that Jane talks about. So yeah, I really enjoy trying to understand things from different people's perspectives and not just have a kind of UK-centric approach. So it's all really interesting. Do I have any more slides? I think that was probably the end.
I think you had a very important one right at the end.
Oh yeah. Oh, but I had this one too. Sorry. Right. So just to leave you with some questions, really, to think about, and maybe come back to me or contact another local NGO. So it was really to think about, like Accenture, does your workplace offer anything that you could take advantage of in terms of volunteering? I was also speaking to Patagonia yesterday. They have volunteering hours for their employees and asked me to think about how we might make use of them. So yeah, professional volunteers, always really welcome. Lots to do. Potentially opportunities around the world. So yeah, do you have a think about that if you think that there are things that you could offer?
Actually, Lynn, on that, would it be helpful perhaps if you could explain how that could happen? So if people want to, if they do have such a scheme, should they contact yourself? Should they contact the local branch of the local chapter of the JGI?
Yeah, it's worth contacting me, and then I can put you in touch with the local branch. But on our website, janegoodall.global, there are links to all of the local chapters as well. But yeah, it might be good to contact me so I can keep track of how that's going. Like I said, the global team, we try and keep an eye on the different priorities around the organization. So it's always good to have that kind of central view. Yeah. So yeah, email me. My email address is on the next slide when we get there.
Perhaps I could intersperse there with an example, because Lynn put me in contact with the JGI local chapter in Belgium. And of course, I'm from the PMI chapter in Belgium. and we've already started having some conversations about the possibilities of maybe having some kind of PMI Belgian chapter event where, for example, we go planting trees here in Belgium as part of both the good things to do in Belgium as well as a part of this fundraising activity that would feed into JGI's wider activity.
Thanks, Stuart. That's a really great example. I'm glad that's happening. Yeah, Belgium have a great initiative called Forest in a Day, where they do a tree planting day in Belgium and also twin it with tree planting in Burundi. So yeah, it's a really great activity. So that's me. I think we're almost at time. So thank you. Please take down my email address. As you can see, we're probably in need of a bit of support around project management and could use your skills. But yeah, if you have any questions or are interested in anything, just get in touch with me. And there is one more slide. If you did feel like making a donation to our work, save the chimps, save the planet, you can use the QR code here. But yes, thank you, everyone.
So, I mean, we've got another around 5 minutes left in the session. So, I mean, one thing I would like to just highlight is one of the comments earlier on, again from Imran, really like the connection between the head and the heart. Thank you for that, Lynn. So that's part of the Jane's philosophy is a very good one there. Any further questions that anyone had? I know one that I was very keen to ask is that the experience that your local project volunteers gain through example being involved in Roots and Shoots and those that are hopefully benefiting, I'm sure they'll be benefiting from taking part in the hackathon today. Maybe that's a good start for them as a future career in project management, because they start off in the youth movement, but also in Burundi and other countries there will of course be significant projects to be executed in the future. So maybe that could be a nice step towards their future career as well. Yeah, and I think just through being involved in this event, and thank you again for inviting me, I noticed that the free project management course that the PMI offer, the 45-minute project management course and digital toolkit might be a good thing that we can offer to our Roots and Shoots young people kind of straight away. But yeah, I do think more focus on project management, more support for them, so they have those skills and they can take those skills forwards. I think there's lots of opportunity there that they would really appreciate. Yeah. I think what's on the slide at the moment is if people want to make a donation individually, but of course, if through your roles in corporations, maybe as part of the other CSR program of your corporations, you're interested in linking up with NGOs such as JGI, and I think then Lynn, you'd be the natural point of contact for follow up on that, wouldn't you? Yeah, absolutely. That would be talking. That would be great. And we're very flexible. There's a number of ways we can work together there. So with the Accenture relationship in the Netherlands, they give us time. They also give us a donation towards our snare removal project in Uganda, because they really love seeing how many snares their funding has managed to remove, and they can see them and they can, understand that that's one less wild animal that's been trapped. And they've given us donations to put towards our first carbon offsetting pilot project. So that's a really great example of, helping us with skills, but then giving us the resources we need to actually implement them. You mentioned Walk to COP27. That was used as we worked with Atlas Go, which is an app that employers can use for employee engagement activities. So employees can track their kilometers cycled, or if you've walked to work, or if you've eaten a vegetarian meal, your company can program kind of sustainable activities, and staff can earn points for doing those sustainable activities. And then that can turn into trees for JGI to plant in Burundi. So that's a nice, easy kind of activity that
organizations can do with their employees as well. So yeah, a range of things.
Great. Super. Well, if there aren't any more questions from the audience, let me just check the chat if there's anything more. We'll obviously make sure you get fed through all the data that we've been gathering on the way, Lynn. It's just we perhaps wrap up that session. So thank you very much, Lynn, for a tremendous presentation today. Found it very inspirational, good opportunity for interaction as well. Great to see how long Jane's been busy doing this for over 60 years, focusing on nature and the environment, helping us to understand how to engage with it and preserve with it. Wonderful to see 1.5 million youth involved worldwide. That's tremendous. And a range of activities engaging with organizations such as Accenture. I'm sure that's a good template that we could think about for the organizations that we each represent and are involved in to take it forwards. And wonderful to see that you'll be going to COP28 and that the message that you're bringing up from the roots level will be taken to that forum and hopefully listened to by the powers that be that often do a lot of talking. Let's hope we see some action as well as a result of the inputs, including from yourselves. So yeah, thanks very much again. Great session, and we'll wrap up the session there.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.